Hello, my name is Braden, and I make music for film. Today, I thought it might be fun to kind of go through a piece of music I wrote for a scene recently and take a video or two to talk about my process and sort of dissect a couple of things. And especially if you are someone who is making music for film, maybe give you a couple ideas to come away with and sort of think about the next time you approach a scene, and also create an opportunity for myself to get feedback from other musicians and composers who maybe have, if you have some other thoughts over the course of watching this video and the ones that should follow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to get some new ideas from you as well. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a chase scene. Now, this was a scene from HBO's Westworld, which Spitfire collaborated with and did a contest, a scoring contest, a while back. If you're 2020, if you're watching this in the future, this happened around 2020. I submitted this entry. Definitely did not place or win first, but it was enjoyable nonetheless. I hope they do more of it in the future, and I really was kind of personally pleased with my submission, my output as far as the music goes, and so thought this would be a fun scene to kind of talk about in terms of action music, in terms of a chase scene, and to give a couple different thoughts on. So far, I'm thinking I'll do a video on general sort of scene analysis, arranging, and then finally the last post-production process of mixing and mastering. So for this first video, I thought I'd talk about the first initial analysis of the scene, when you first watch it, and kind of developing ideas as to what you want to do with the music, what you want the music to achieve, and creating some notes for yourself on how this is going to work. So let's dive right in. Real quick, let me just sort of highlight. So when I thought about how I wanted to, what kind of submission I wanted to enter, basically, what kind of music I wanted, because we're trying to win the contest, right? My initial approach, I thought, because the scene originally had Flight of the Valkyries over it, it does in the original show, and I didn't want to necessarily try to recreate that. It's something of an insurmountable task, and I didn't want it to sound like, a ripoff of that piece, but I also didn't want it to sound too foreign to the show, or like totally left of center. I kind of wanted my approach to sound like it could fit in with the pre-existing music from the show, composed by Ramin Djawadi. And so yeah, that was my thought, is that I will kind of keep the sort of contemporary cinematic sci-fi action elements. I didn't want to recreate the wheel, which is fun to do, and a lot of people did totally different sort of reimaginings of what the score could have sounded like, and that's really cool. But I didn't necessarily want to do that this time around, in case it would hurt my chances. Obviously, it didn't really. I didn't win, so there you have it. But keep that in mind, and we'll spend a little more time talking about that in the arranging portion. But like I said, for this first video, I kind of want to talk about analyzing the scene. When you first get a scene, maybe it's from a film, short film, anything really that you're going to compose for, I'm sort of analyzing and just give you a couple thoughts from my process of what I was looking for in terms of dynamics, and various other things. We'll talk about that here in a sec. Now, the interesting thing about this situation and the difference between submitting something for a contest and doing an actual scene that you've been, hired on by a director, producer, what have you, when you're composing for them. What I didn't have here that I have with them is, something like what's called a spotting session. And that is where you sit down with the director, producer, whoever you're kind of communicating with, and either watch the scene or the film or whatever it is. Either that, or maybe you don't watch it all together. Maybe it's just kind of a conversation, some emails or a phone call about, you both have seen it at that point, and you're sort of discussing like where music is going to go. The whole point of a spotting session or something like that is to decide where music is going to go, where it isn't going to go, and to sort of, generally speaking, clarify what the music's job in any given scene is. And this helps everybody be on the same page. And when you as a composer have a good understanding of what the music is supposed to accomplish in a scene, this is only going to make your job easier. So obviously with this contest, I didn't have that. I didn't have a director to talk to, producer to talk to. It was just all going to be from me, what I wanted to do. And that can be, sometimes it can be, have that freeing to have that much creative freedom. And sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, and it's helpful to have somebody kind of guiding you in a particular direction. I kind of had to self-direct here. But with that said, the first thing I did upon beginning the contest was download the scene. I had actually already seen, I'd been watching season 3, and I'd already seen this episode of the show, but it had been a while, and I wanted to watch the scene without music, and sort of a couple times, as many times as you need to do that, however many times you need to sort of generate ideas and take notes. So we're going to watch the scene from beginning to end. It's about 4.5 minutes. And I want to point out to you a couple different areas where I stopped and made a note of something that I thought, okay, this is important, and I should remember this particular thing, whatever it may have been at this time, in order to come up with some ideas and make the music really dynamic and interesting and serve the scene as best it could. Now here I want to just outline a couple things that we're going to be looking for. What are we looking for when we watch the scene back? Some people may not know what to look for. Well, a couple of things are going to be dynamics of the scene. The scene, the edit is going to have its own dynamic and its own ups and downs, its own energy, and that energy is going to translate through the sound, through the picture, all of that. And you kind of want to translate that energy into something musical conceptually, something that'll fit the energy or the tone of whatever's happening on screen musically. And so with action scenes, obviously an approach that many people take, and rightfully so, is a sort of fast-paced, upbeat, rhythmic, kinetic, energetic approach to these scenes, because there is, there are similar things happening on screen. People are running, people are driving quickly, people are fighting each other, people are using weapons, some of the things that we associate with action scenes or chase scenes. And so a lot of composers try to match that with a similarly high energy music. And this happened to be an approach that I took with this particular scene. But definitely pay closer attention to the dynamics of an action scene, because just because it's, the scene overall is fast paced or high energy or whatever you want to say, there will be dips in energy. There will be elevations of energy. It's not going to be the same level of energy throughout the entire scene. It's going to kind of come and go. It's going to be in flux. And this is really important to keep in mind. Something you want to do, and I tried to do in analyzing the scene first time I watched it without music, is to figure out where those changes in energy occur, and to highlight those musically, where those changes are, where those transitions are between, and really those where the individual sort of sections are within the scene, which is another thing you want to try to do when you're watching, is even though it's all one action scene, there will be, as we will watch, scenes that primarily focus on the vehicles chasing each other. There will be people firing weapons at each other. There will be explosions. There will be sort of other things that happen within the scene. And those are each different from each other and may benefit from having a sort of shift in dynamics musically, or a shift in the arrangement, in order to highlight that, okay, now we're doing something different. So these are a couple things we're gonna keep in mind. A few others are things that we want to sort of highlight or accent musically. Examples of this may be something new that happens on screen visually, something new that enters in that we want to sort of highlight that entrance. It could be a look between characters. It could be a change in a character's state. Something like this, moments that we think it'd be interesting to highlight musically and sort of accent. The audience is already visually going to watch and understand that, oh, something's happening to him or her, or oh, something is there that wasn't there before. They're going to see that, but just to give kind of a little musical accent to that can be something that elevates the scene to another level. So there are a couple ideas. Let's go ahead and dive into the scene, and we can talk more in depth about some of these in particular.
We're approaching now. Stand by. Got it.
Okay, so I'm already going to pause it right here and just note the way the scene starts is probably one of the lowest points of dynamic energy in the scene entirely, and I definitely wanted to mirror that with the arrangement. So even just the first few seconds here, you can make a note. Okay, the scene kind of starts at a low point, and then all of a sudden, gunfire comes out, and things are going to start ramping up. So we want to kind of start at a pace that fits this part, and then sort of rises with the energy in the scene.
We're approaching now.
From here
Got it.
to here.
Verified. Enable semi-automatic control. Disable safety features. Maximum speed. Go.
And let me pause here to highlight something else you can see with my mouse up here. In Cubase and possibly some other DAWs do this as well. They have this markers feature, which is super handy, and it lists all the different markers I have above here with the video and audio files for the scene. And basically this enables me to kind of highlight certain things. You can also add in notes to these markers. I kind of like to just keep mental notes, or maybe keep the specific notes in a separate document. So clearly you can see marker 1 starts the scene, and then right as the vehicle starts to speed up and drive away, I have marker 2 there, because I want to remember this is the point at which the action starts. And I wanted to make a mental note here that I want things to kind of ramp up here. I want to introduce energy into the music that's going to highlight this, because all of a sudden we weren't moving and we're kind of sitting ducks, and now we're starting to make our escape. And there needs to be a musical shift there that highlights this. So using markers, or even just taking notes if your DAW doesn't have this kind of feature, although I think most should, is beneficial. Another thing that might be good to sort of show you here above is my my tempo automation here. Now, like I was saying before, there are going to be rises and falls and dynamics within the scene. There are going to be different sections of action where different things are happening, and changes of tempo, either increases or decreases, is something that can help musically with these transitions within the scene. So you can see here we're starting at about 99 BPM, and then later on in the scene we're going to be rising and falling a bit. And that's something to keep in mind and kind of ask yourself as you're watching, like, what kind of, if I'm going to be making something kind of rhythmic, what kind of a tempo do I feel like, just feels right with this section of the film? And I'll turn my tempo click on real quick. You can hear. In this case, it was 99 for me at this section. So tempo, shifts in the scene, these are things we're keeping an eye out for. Let's go ahead and proceed. You can see we got to marker 3 here because there was a shift from the vehicles pursuing to the inside of the car. And there's not always going to be a shift musically that I want just by location. Don't necessarily think that, the location kind of changed, so we need to change the music. It's not quite like that. But the dynamics may determine whether or not you want to do that. Let's go ahead and continue on here.
What's happening to him?
I think he's switching genres.
Okay, so this is a good place to stop. One of the things we can make a note of here is obviously there's been a shift in the state of one of our characters here. And so this would be a really good place to kind of accent that, to musically support the idea that something's going on with this character that maybe shouldn't be, maybe wasn't before. And especially, that especially makes, to my mind, this section of the scene a good candidate for a shift in dynamics, because what was happening here with the pursuit is very much different from what we're experiencing here with this character. Okay, let's keep going.
We need distance. Head south.
Now, obviously, you may have noticed there was a shift back to the cars pursuing, and then back to some dialogue here. So I have those notated here in the markers. And my numbers are all kinds of screwed up, but that's okay. The individual markers just kind of, it doesn't really matter which number it is. So yeah, we have the chase here, and then we have some dialogue coming before then, and then we're going back to the chase here. Now this section right here, I didn't make a marker for, but as we'll hear in the next video when we look at the arrangement, this shift right here, this change in shot is something I wanted to accent, that I took an opportunity to do, to highlight. And that's basically that, like, all up until this point, we've been on the ground. This is from the vehicle's perspective. We're not quite necessarily like at a POV shot from inside the vehicle, but they're all more or less level with the street, with the ground. And from inside with the characters. And then all of a sudden we shift here and we get this nice, pretty cool aerial shot. And suddenly the scope has been widened. We're seeing more of our surroundings, We're seeing more of, where the vehicles are going. And then we kind of go back to ground level. But this shot right here I thought would be, and especially in these moments where there's not much dialogue, there's lots of room for music. I thought that shift would be one that was fun to highlight. And so keeping an eye on the cinematography and the visuals and changes in visuals and sort of accenting those with music as well is another, useful tool to have.
Is that a standard issue?
No. It's not.
Okay, this section right here is pretty cool. So we have marker 6 here signifying the shift back to the street level. We've kind of come here from the bigger chase back to street level. Actually, yeah, it's more, the timing's kind of off, but it's signifying, okay, we're back in the vehicle again. And then marker 7 is signifying all of a sudden there is a weapon being introduced that wasn't there before. And the way this scene kind of paces itself out made me think we kind of slow down. We watch her load this weapon. And then he is kind of like incredulous at the fact that she has access to this weapon. And then she responds looking very cocky and confident. And so we're slowing down. The filmmakers are giving us the real opportunity to slow down and absorb what's about to happen. And people watching are going to start wondering what's going to happen next. And this to me was crying out for heavy emphasis. This kind of is just like an oh shit moment. Like the stakes have just been raised. New tools are being used. This is definitely something that I wanted to accent very heavily, and will hear. You can hear in the video or in the arrangement video I'll be doing that. I tried to do that. Now, also something to notice here is there's been a tempo change. The tempo has increased from 99.
Standard issue?
No. It's not.
To 138. And you can hear the difference that makes, even with just the click. Even with just the click and watching, nice face from Aaron Paul there, even with just the click from watching the scene, you can hear that it makes quite a difference. And, that change in tempo will do a lot for you. It'll signify a shift in energy, which there has been a shift in energy because now we are starting to fight back. Our characters are starting to fight back. They're not just running away. There's a shift in dynamics. The stakes have been raised. This new weapon's been introduced. And so the increase in the tempo is a great way to sort of highlight that. And like I was saying before, we're still in a chase scene. It's all a chase scene, but now we're signifying, okay, this is a new section. This section before is the initial kind of pursuit, and now this section is, okay, now our protagonists are fighting back. And this is a great way to highlight that.
Point and shoot.
Another marker here just to kind of signify, okay, now the vehicles are pursuing, the weapons are starting to be fired at each other. Aaron Paul is in danger. If you wanted to, you could try to use that as an opportunity to introduce some new elements to the arrangement, or sort of highlight that, try to, by the stakes and the dynamics of the scene increase that musically as well.
Police ahead. Maintain speed.
Maintaining speed.
Sharp left. Now.
Now I have marker 10 here because at that point, this is a huge moment of action from the vehicle. I really wanted this to, this moment here to feel an increase in energy, and it it gave us a great moment to do that, especially with the dialogue right before. You could certainly can have high energy music over dialogue. Some people try to not step over dialogue too much musically and tone it down when dialogue is present, and you don't necessarily need to do that. In fact, it may just be like a volume issue in your DAW. If you turn up the if you can make sure that you can hear the audio for the film very well at all times, then that shouldn't worry you too much. It can always be automated or reduced, but oftentimes as well, it is good to kind of have the energy match dialogue, and dialogue isn't always high energy. Now, there's still action happening here, but I wanted there to be kind of a dip, or at least not an increase here, until 10, and then once this happens, that's a huge moment of action there, and definitely wanted to accent that and have the music really hit hard at that particular time. Okay, so let's talk about this moment here. At 11, we finally fire our weapon, and it's a miss. So a couple things I wanted to do here. Number one, even though this was a contest, and obviously music is the emphasis of a composing contest, it is always important to know when not to have music. When actually the absence of music is what's going to serve the scene better than the presence of it. And so following the miss and the impact of that right before it turns out the weapon is actually working, I wanted there to be kind of a moment of silence. This is obviously a dip in energy happening here at the failure of the attempt at dispatching the opponents here, and I wanted to feel that in the music. A great piece of advice I heard from the John Powell Mixed with the Masters series of videos, I suppose, which if you haven't seen, you should totally look it up and check it out. I believe it was free at the time I watched it. Hopefully it's still free at the time you looked it up. But something John Powell said that I kind of took in with me to this scene was, you never want the music to be ahead of the character. Now, of course, there's a time to break every rule. So maybe there will be instances where that would actually be a good thing to do. But his point was often you want the music to track with your character and be exactly where they are, and for the music to almost experience things in the same time that they do. So I didn't want the music here to telegraph that this was going to be a failed attempt. I wanted there to be some kind of musical decrease in energy right when Aaron Paul's character has this sort of like defeated look. The opponents are still there. I wanted the music to definitely have a sort of dynamic shift and defeated feel that matched this.
I missed!
Hold on.
Now, and obviously here, when it turns out, hey, the weapon actually was working after all, I thought everything from here leading up to that point would be great to have completely silent, because when the wings or propellers, whatever those are, pop out, that's a great opportunity for, like I said, something new appearing on screen. It's kind of another like, oh shit, it actually did work, and to be able to highlight that would be good, and that emphasis would be even stronger with silence leading up to it. And you can guess what marker 19 is for. So this whole lead up is a perfect opportunity for energy to increase until you finally want it to max out around 19. Real quick, just backtracking a bit, you can see some of the tempo shifts there. In listening to these sections aren't particularly rhythmic, so this is more just kind of for, I don't know, technical purposes, and we'll get into that more in the arrangement. But yeah, super big, dynamic shift here in terms of, let's see, from 11, so from 10, we're very dynamic because we're fighting back now. That's going to dip down here at the failed attempt. It's going to ramp up here and increase until we get to the explosion. That was my, sort of idea for how to handle the dynamics of that portion. Okay, so we've got another tempo change here, and we've got another a good opportunity for a rhythmic shift because the second vehicle emerges and the chase is not over, and so we want to kind of musically provide something that reinforces that idea and goes along with the actions of the characters.
All right, I need you. Drop in, intersect, maximum speed.
And so that tempo is what I went with there that I thought would best match the feel of that scene and the energy of it.
Arm charges now.
The introduction of the bike, I guess around here, and the arming of the charges is another good opportunity for something new, to try to highlight that. Either highlight or accent this introduction of something new, or to increase dynamics, like we talked about.
Accelerate.
Acceleration at 90%.
More.
94%.
More.
98%.
Now this section right here, from 20 to 14, let's listen to that again.
Accelerate.
Acceleration at 90%.
More.
94%.
More.
98%.
So there's a lot there to kind of latch onto and inform what musically could work really well there. We've got the sound of the speeding bike. We've got one of our characters literally talking about increasing speed. We've got worried looks from characters, the sound of the vehicle sort of speeding up.
90%.
And you can hear that pitch rising too. They have that effect in there.
More.
94%.
More.
98%.
So clearly a really obvious candidate for increase in dynamics, raising tension, and sort of building in your arrangement. Those are a ton of stuff to latch onto, and that should be jumping out at you for potentially something to happen there dynamically.
Stop.
Why the are we stopping?
Okay. And then obviously here, almost immediately after, we have the vehicle lurch to a stop. We have a character say the word stop. Clearly some more input that maybe a decrease in dynamics is now what would be appropriate. And I wanted everything. It's interesting because as you can see, we're almost to the end of our scene. We have, I don't know, maybe a couple seconds left. Not a whole lot of time. And so you want there to be a feeling of resolution towards the end of the scene and accomplishment in the victory that's going to occur. And you want dynamically there to be something that fits. And usually it's at the end of the chase scene when the victory is, and you would kind of think that maybe the dynamics would fluctuate and then would peak out at the end of the scene. That's when they would be at their greatest. But with this scene, there's a stop and a wait here.
Why the are we stopping?
Get down.
They get out of the car and they kind of just stand really still for a moment. They take a beat. And then, of course, the bike rushes in out of nowhere, and we have our victory. And that's the end. So clearly the other explosion here is a good candidate for the dynamics in the scene to rise again. But, there's kind of some question as to whether or not this exactly needs to be the biggest dynamic part of the scene, if the most energy and, if the most energy needs to occur here, or if it's okay to have occurred somewhere else, because you don't want the ending to kind of feel like a dud. But at the same time, there's a dip in energy here when they stop and wait and the other car is approaching before the bike emerges. And so you want to be kind of careful with that. And like I said, my approach here was to kind of stay toe-to-toe with the characters. And so to have the energy sort of super high during this period of kind of waiting here and try to telegraph, hey, something's coming and they're going to win, I thought wouldn't be appropriate. I thought it was best if the dynamics of the arrangement kind of slowed down here along with the characters, and then maybe something rushed in out towards the end. And even though this is a piece of action, it's another explosion, it's very different because our characters are now safe. They're not running anymore like they were for the first explosion earlier. And there's a different energy to it. And so, I think I tried a few things for the ending, but I kind of watched it and ended up feeling like it's okay if there's a dip in dynamics here and we have something to emphasize the victory at the end, but it's not quite like anything else we had earlier. The dynamics don't necessarily need to peak out towards the end. They should always be appropriate for what's in the scene. And then we have our ending. So there you go. There's my thoughts on kind of first analyzing the scene, different places within it that I thought would be good to treat as their own individual sections, things within those, different dynamic shifts within those sections of action, different things I wanted to highlight or accent with the music going forward. So having all of this here, even just like kind of notes, markers for where you want stuff to happen, and different ideas of tempos that fit particular scenes can be hugely helpful just going in. Imagine starting the scene, having all this. It's, really nice to have because it can remind you, oh yeah, I kind of want to do something here, and it can sort of lead you along instead of you just kind of floundering the entire time wondering, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? If you already have a, roughly thorough analysis of the scene, you can try to speed up that process. And this can all change. There are no rules in music. This can all change throughout the course of arranging. If you think, oh no, there's a better tempo here, or I thought I should accent that, but I don't think it works very well with the rest of the arrangement. It can all change. The great thing about music is you can always scrap everything and start over. But anyway, hopefully some of these ideas about how to first watch something that you're going to compose for it and then come up with some notes, especially when it comes to maybe an action scene or a chase scene, something like that, have been helpful and informative, enlightening. And I would like you to take this opportunity to enlighten me as well. If you have any different thoughts or things that you did or have done for different things that you've worked on, or ideas for this scene, things you would have done differently, let me know. I'd love to hear those, and always trying to learn something new. So Well, there you have it. Like I said, I think I'm going to produce some videos regarding the arranging and mixing process of the scene as well. So you can check the channel for those in the future. And thanks for watching. See you later.